So I'm taking a walk, and so forget the camera shake. But I had a comment on a video, one of my videos, regarding about should Christians keep the Torah, observing the Sabbath, keeping kosher, obeying the Torah commands in the Old Testament, as well as the 1,050 New Testament commands that New Testament Christians are supposed to adhere to. And so someone asked, and I'd get this question, how many? Like, to what extent does Scripture require Christians to follow the Torah? And I want to answer that question this way, because essentially that's like saying, what's the least I have to do in order to be a Christian? What's the least number of commands I have to follow? Just the 10 commandments? All 613 minus the sin sacrifices and the temple sacrifices, because there's no temple, minus any commands about slavery because we don't own slaves, and minus any commands about agricultural things if you're not a farmer, minus any commands about livestock if you don't own any livestock. So it really boils down to a lot of just behavioral commands. If you don't farm, if you don't have a ranch, if you don't have slaves or servants or stuff like that, and so we kind of look at Torah sometimes and we think, oh, it was such a burden. Give me a break. Like, read the New Testament. It's almost double the commands in the New Testament than in the Old Testament. Don't tell me it's harder to keep Old Testament commands. It's not. It's actually way easier, because if you read the New Testament, Jesus takes these Old Testament commands and makes them harder to follow. He says, you've heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery, but I say to you, if you look upon a woman with lust in your heart, you've committed adultery already. Don't tell me it's easier to follow the New Testament than it is the Old Testament. That's ridiculous. Jesus says, he said, you've heard it said of old, which is one of the commandments, thou shalt not commit murder. But I say to you, if you hate someone in your heart, you've committed murder in your heart. And you think that's easier to follow than an Old Testament command, thou shalt not murder? Don't have this mistaken idea that following Torah is A, burdensome, B, impossible. It's not impossible. It's actually really possible. Don't eat bacon. Don't eat shellfish. Don't eat things that God said aren't food. It's really not that complicated. Rest on the day God said you should rest on. Friday at sundown to Saturday at sundown, we don't work. If we don't get it done before sundown, we don't do it. Like, we don't do the dishes, we don't do the laundry, we don't, do chores, we don't do the normal work that we would do. Yeah, we get out of bed, we get dressed. We have food that's easy to eat on Shabbat. We have uncrustable sandwiches that we can take out of the freezer in the morning, and they're defrosted for our boys. That's not work. Like, work is kindling a fire. Work is not turning on a microwave, pushing a button. That's not work. Kindling a fire is work. If you've ever had to kindle a fire without matches, that's 100% work. That is laborious. It's sweat-inducing. It is a workout. So yeah, he doesn't want you to kindle a fire on Sabbath. It doesn't mean you can't throw a log on an existing fire. It doesn't mean you can't fire up the microwave. Now, there are ultra-Orthodox Jews who don't do that, but their workaround for that is to pay a Gentile to come flip a light switch on for them, to come light the fire for them. Well, you're missing the point. If you're paying somebody to break the commandments so you don't have to, I don't agree with that personally. But I think for Christians, if your outlook is, what's the least I have to do, what's the least I have to believe, what's the least I have to obey in order to be a follower of Jesus Christ, that mentality is all wrong. So I'm not going to answer the question the way you probably want answered. All of it. Jesus says that If you teach people to nullify my commandments, then you're the least in the kingdom. So I'm not going to teach anybody to not obey his commandments. He said to do it. If you don't do it, that's on you. That's not on me. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to do what he said to do. And if I get there, if I get to heaven and he goes, hey, Jason, you didn't have to do all that stuff, I'll be like, it's okay. You said to do it. And I don't want to be in disobedience. And I'd rather err on the side of being obedient than err on the side of disobedience. So if I get to heaven and he goes, hey, man, you could have rested on Sunday. You could have eaten a BLT. I'll be like, it's okay. I really didn't miss it. I didn't give anything up that was a deal breaker for me. I'm okay with letting go and not eating things you said weren't food. I'm not eating bats, owls, tigers. I'm not eating dogs and cats. Like, I'm not eating things that God said aren't food. So, and honestly, there's a lot of things that he said are food that I just don't like, and I don't eat that either. So I'm not missing out on anything. In my life, yes, I have had pork. I have had ham. I've had pork chops, bacon. I've had all that stuff, and I don't eat that anymore because that's a personal conviction. He said no. He said don't eat it. He said it's not food. He said obey. So the reality is, if God said it's good, then it's good. If God said it's bad, it's bad. And there wasn't like this dramatic shift when Jesus showed up. He did not tell people they didn't have to follow Torah. He made the Torah harder to follow. He made it stricter. So anyway, I've made my point. Hopefully by now. It's almost 7 minutes into this video, and you're probably getting motion sickness from me walking, but I just felt like I had a comment on one of my videos, and I've heard this before. Just felt like let's get the right frame of mind. Let's obey because he said so. And because I want to be obedient. I want to be an obedient son. And obedience, blessings follow obedience. Curses follow disobedience. Deuteronomy 28. All right, hope that helps.